back to another episode of the Fired Up for Friday podcast, the podcast letting you know what has me fired up for what's dropping each and every Friday. Now, I've been out of town for a little bit, so I'm a little late on this one too, but that allowed me to listen to even more promos, giving you more heavy to keep you fired up for this work week. And this week, we're bringing to you some heavy metal, a ton of doom metal, a bunch of instrumentals, and we're bringing back the album of last week, which we skipped last week because I didn't do enough research into a band and I didn't want to promote some bullshit that I didn't agree with. There's only so much time in a week. You can't research every band, every album. I'm just glad I caught it before I actually published it because I don't want to give that type of bigotry any type of airtime. So let's get back to the positive. So let's see what has me fired up for Friday, August 14th, 2026. And kicking off this week's fresh batch of heavy is an album that I am beyond excited to share with you. Coming all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, and there's a lot of good bands in Cleveland, Ohio. They have a long lineage of music history, and especially in metal. Whether it's Midnight, Ringworm, Slow Wake, 200 Stab Wounds, and so many more. But when I learned that the Dog Pound's Ironflame was dropping a new album, Worlds to Conquer, I knew it would rip. And it helped that I got to see them a week or two before the album dropped. At a show held about an hour away from me out in Helltown Brewing out in Mount Pleasant, PA, where the zip code is one of my favorite numbers, 15666. That's why they call it Helltown Brewing. And Helltown brought both Ironflame and another one of my favorite bands, Lost Psychonaut, who's also from the Mount Pleasant area, so a doom band from 15666. You've got to check them out too. And at this show at Helltown Brewing, Ironflame completely melted faces and destroyed necks all throughout their set that was chock full of precision, if I had to use one word to describe it. Is badass one word? Because I'd use that too. I don't know if that's a compound word, hyphens, I don't know how that works, what's the rules? Ironflame is the project of the multi-instrumentalist, who's very impressive, I might add, Andrew DeCagna. My apologies if I pronounce that wrong, Andrew, who did it all on this record, except for a few solos where the live guitarists, Jesse Scott and Quinn Lucas, perform those, and man, does this record kick ass. So much so that when I had the promo sent over to me, I basically had it on loop, and it's another one of those albums that you know what, I'm gonna listen to it one more time. I just need one more listen and then I'll know. Or just one more spin and I'll be familiar. And next thing you know, it's like 30 spins, your whole day's gone, and you're still left wanting more. Shout out to bassist James Babcock and drummer Noah Skiba, and helped to create a phenomenal set where they just tore through it. What blew me away the most, again, was the precision, but also the technicality, as I'm not really sure how much these dudes actually play together. Being that Andrew does most of the instrumentation and recording process, I hope to interview him in a few weeks. Maybe I'll find out more about that, so stay tuned, make sure you subscribe, comment hard, do all those things so you don't miss that review when I reach out to Andrew. And then I'll be able to let you know. And from the moment you press play, listeners are immediately plunged into a heavy metal lover's dream. With some progressive feels, some new wave of British heavy metal influences. And again, this album is tight. Is there such thing as technical heavy metal? I know there's like technical death metal, but is there such a thing as technical heavy metal? Because I think if so, this might fall in that category. Can we make up a new category? Let's do it. And this is for fans of the classics of all over the map, ranging from your classics like Maiden and Priest, to Queensryche, Fate's Warning, and similar sounding bands from those classic eras until now. And whether it's Queensryche and Fate's Warning, or Maiden and Priest, and even at times, some Metallica, as it can get heavy at times. And this is a phenomenal album where I have to ask Andrew if the hardest part of this album wasn't maybe making it, but maybe choosing which song was gonna be the singles. Because I think every song on this album could very well be a single. I'm filming this on Friday, so I know you got your listens in already, but if I was to start over and check out Friday, this is where I'd begin, because this album is killer. So much so, I'm giving Ironflame Worlds of Conquer a hot-ass 87 with 100% humidity. And with all that humidity, it ain't stopping the flames. If yins ain't familiar with Ironflame, head on over and get your ears torched. In a culmination of sounds that I just seem to not be able to get enough of, Mean Green Metal Machine is back, picking up where 2023 self-titled Mean Green left off with huge, fuzzy riffs that are thicker than a 1980s phone book on their latest full-length Castle. And while the band's called Mean Green, I'm thinking this album is so damn heavy, it started to bruise, hence the black and blue album cover. These North Kakalaki rockers lean into a hard and heavy, almost doom-like feel on this new effort, Castle, and man, I am glad they did, while still retaining those stoned-out sounds that you would expect from these 12-step candidates. This album is laid out in a nice manner, giving plenty of rise and fall, ebb and flow, as this album plays on making one engaging listen. Jake Phelps, the guitarist and vocalist, whose riffs help carry listeners' ears to those charred furnace known as his vocals, which he uses to torch any resemblance of a clean delivery. If you know me, I hate clean singing. The drumming is to the song, and James seems to know when to turn it up and when to dial it back, creating some nice rhythms to coincide with Alex Weirback's thunderous bass riffs. For fans of that 420 style metal, like High on Fire, Sleep, Weed Eater, Bongzilla, Restless Spirit, Dope Lord, and so many more killer bands. And if you're a fan of those thick and saturated sounds, I think this album's a must, because you're gonna love it. And if you didn't love it, guess what? I did. How much did I love it? So much so that I'm giving it an 84/20, and shout out to Emily for inspiring some dope riffs. Glad you got to keep the riffs, as riffs are the most important thing besides dogs. And when you get both riffs and dogs packaged together, it's just the bee's knees. So check out this oozing, sweet as honey sounds of Mean Green. I can vouch for him. This album it's pretty mean. It's quite accurately named. The older I get, the more patient I think I seem to feel. And if you know me, it's a trait I haven't been fond of until now. With me recently really loving some post-metal and post-black metal sounds, where I often find the contrast of crushing chaos and timeless tranquility that creates that nice balance in my ear. And both can be found on the newest album, Born Adrift by Denver post-instrumentalists Only Echoes. And Born Adrift is a 6-song, 35-minute album where these Denver nuggets rely on the music to convey messages, and it came over screaming loud and clear, crushing deluges of rhythms, balanced with expansive horizons, and this album feels like any day of the week or month that I have ever lived. And as someone who feels that they were born a bit adrift, this one grabbed me immediately. And I had this album on loop while I played Monopoly with my kid, and the ebb and flow, rise and fall of this album mimicked the momentum of the game, which is a metaphor for life or economics, Atlantic City, capitalism, or however else you look at Monopoly. There's some moments of thrashy races, sometimes going a bit further into those deathy tones, only to hit the opposite and sometimes patient pairings that the post-metal genre is known for. With this being an instrumental, I always say, you better bring your A game. There's nothing else to focus on. And with as many times as I focused on this, I'm not sure it could have been any better. The production adds to the experience as it's clean as hell. Smix separates everything really nicely in your ears, while still leaving moments of that grit and distortion, not scrubbing out the sincerity of the music. Which you know I love. Adrift was written with the idea of traversing obstacles, overcoming those feelings of being lost, and sometimes the courage that it takes to find your way. And to be fair, I've always struggled with lyricless instrumental storytelling. So when I read the press release after listening to this a few times, it all came together and it definitely all made sense. As the press release story of what inspired this music, which I already explained, aligned quite well with those delicious included sounds. Not a big fan of instrumental metal, but there's been a few this week and I thought they were all great. So maybe that's changing, I don't know. But after this, I'm a fan of only echoes, I'll tell you that much. And I'm getting this detail-oriented offering in 85. This is one high week of scores. If you take that 85 and you add it to the 35-minute length that this album is, that gives you 110%. Mathematically, that's like perfection or something. And I'm here for it all. This is a hot week of release, as you can see from the sweat. Hang in there, it's only gonna get hotter. If you can't take the heat, I don't know, get an air conditioner. Don't be in the kitchen, I don't know. In a world where expectations half the time make or break a real world event, and how an individual experiences that event is something of an idea that I've been working on myself recently. I'm starting to learn that timing is everything, but the approach and the intent might be just as important. Welcome into your ears another follow-up instrumental from the Windy City, Chicago's Coyote band, and their newest full-length since 2017, in this Friday's Prosthetic Memories. Guiding listeners through equally as heavy topics such as hope, introspection, and triumph. I figure I was going to explore these themes eventually, as I've been quite introspective of late, and this is an exceptional soundtrack to do that too. Cinematic at times, elevating soaring sounds that quickly can be grounded with crushing, crashing weights. And the lack of vocals allow each listener to draw whatever they want from these sounds. While they may attempt to guide you and they may have wrote with their own story in mind, I like to get creative, and as such a colorful palette that's in this head, ain't no story gonna be crazier than this. Have fun with it. Think what you want. Do what you want. Don't let people tell you. Feeling post-metal at times with hints of melody, I enjoyed the hell out of Prosthetic Memories. The title leaves me one question. It's been studied and cited that memories can change and evolve over time, sometimes appearing differently than what the actual event was. So if memories haven't been formed yet, and the ones that are formed are sometimes changing, isn't every memory we have a prosthetic memory then? If so, very few memories, especially prosthetic, sound this good. I'm giving this an 80, as I have no memories before that, because I wasn't created yet. Actually, I don't think I have memories prior to like last week. I'm getting old. And if you like these themes of this album, stick around. We got another album coming up that questions these memories, and even if life itself is meaningless, and you thought you were just getting some fire this week, you didn't know you were getting some deep thoughts. Deep shit this week, and y'all thought I was shallow. Damn it, do I love metal. In the trifecta instrumental offerings this week, Tasmania's Observers are the brainchild of Martin Kennedy, who handles guitars, synth, and the overall creation of soundscapes. And don't use that term soundscapes loosely. This album's magnificent, and damn it if they ain't picturesque. Getting a hand from drummer Chris Baum and bassist Rich Gray and their sophomore release, The Emerald, one thick and rich sound. And it's not only those picturesque soundscapes that are created, but the patience and again the pacing is what sets this album apart. And while I do dig a good instrumental like I said earlier, this is beyond good and it might even be beyond great. Written and based off of some sci-fi themes, this is better than any movie score or soundtrack I've heard, except for maybe Judgment Night or the Crow soundtrack. Which leads me to ask, what's your favorite soundtrack? Let me know in the comments. I'm always down to check out new music. And again, I always listen to the music before I read the press release, because I, like I suggest you, want to form my own opinions. I don't like being told what to do. Thrash metal is anti-authority, and as whacked out as my brain is from banging it, I can sure create some colorful ideas to go along with this colorful music. And from the moment I pressed play, I felt like I was delivered into a land vastly different than our own. And taking a recent trip to Disney in Florida, this invoked images and thoughts very similar to the Avatar scenery around that area of the park, if you know it, or if you're familiar with that Avatar movie. It's lands of pure growth, peace, and tranquility. Until like that war stuff starts, but I'm not talking about that. I want the beauty and the peace and the tranquility. But just like a ride at the theme park or the movie, you gotta have a little bit of drama, right? You don't want it flatline and static. So at times Observers knuckles down, gets gritty, and gets in that heavy. And when in any world, society, community, family, and even in the metal world, when is there ever everlasting peace? Peace sells. I'm not buying. And just like the scenery they're attempting to create, the Emerald feels very, very organic as it unfolds, and just like the lifespan of organic matter, there's that rise and fall, tension and release, anger, adversity, and so many other elements of drama at play here. And the sincerity is what brings these feelings to life and makes this album feel that much more alive. The phenomenal production by Joe Haley of Tasmania's Psychroptic. Interview with him coming in a few days. I'll come back and I'll add it in and it'll be in one of these corners. But his production work not only allows a story to be told, for fans ranging from doom, psych, stoner rock, progressive metal, instrumental metal, atmospheric metal. And basically, if you just like good music, you should probably check this out, because this thing is killer. And I'm giving this one an 85, because it reminds me of those mid-80s classic sci-fi films. And honestly, I would have came to that conclusion without reading that press release. I didn't need it for this one. As wild as the devil from the same land that the Observers came from. Except these dudes seem a hell of a lot angrier. Tasmania is the Absolution sequence. Take the whole Dark Owl reputation rather serious if you ask me, as their latest offering, Dread Cycle, is dark as hell, which only makes me like it more. A technical death metal offering from a band that has more members than I think days of the week. With this much metal, how the hell can it not be heavy? Well, this is a technical death metal album. I feel this has enough heaviness to appeal to fans of just straight up or old school death metal. With 2 drummers, 3 guitarists, 3 contributors of vocals, I kind of feel bad for the bassist, Alistair Boone, as no one pitched in to give him a hand. But, to be fair, in the Absolution sequence's defense, and are we now considering bassists full-on band members? They're bassists. No offense to people like Joey Vieira, Lemmy, Becky Baldwin. You guys kill her, I'm just joking. And I get the dread of life, relationships, or each and every one of us has something different we dread. For me, it's work. I hate my job. Maybe even starting to enjoy the dread? I'm not really that smart, so I don't know if you can enjoy dread. But if not, I think I just invented the ability to. And I think this might be their debut full length, as I only found a handful of EPs and singles, which I'm gonna head over and get a lot more familiar with now. And I suggest you get familiar with the Absolution sequence's Dread Cycle, because it's worthy of a few listens, even if you're dreading so yourself. Now I'm giving this album an 81, because why the 1? Well, it's the first time I heard them, and I think it's their first full length, like I said. But if they have more long players, please let me know, because like I said, I want to check out more from the Absolution sequence. I definitely don't want to miss more. Now the Absolution sequence's album filled me with so much dread that I think I started liking it. So here's another album filled with dread. Death in the Family by New England's The Living Weapon, which is a confusing name because this weapon's killing it. Death in the Family immediately drops listeners off into a sonic barrage of chaos, war on your ears, and I was elated. Being 9 songs clocking in at only 23 minutes, and what is described as an unresolved end to the album, which I'm not really sure what that means, but I never really had that experience of an unresolved end because for a while there really wasn't an end. I listened to this album while cutting grass, and while I just kind of dove into the music, next thing you know, it was like an hour and a half, and I'm saying to myself, these songs are sounding quite familiar, but they were that good that I just kept letting them go because there's so much going on in this album, the mix, each song, each riff, that you could discover something new each and every time you hear this, with riff after riff of just crushing tones and some chaotic work, which I'm not exactly sure if it's like a DJ scratching, some well-placed samples, or some synth effects. But I got a Sid Wilson, formerly of Slipknot, formerly of Kelly Osbourne, feeling from that chaos. But to be fair, I loved it. I love that chaos. I love that scratching samples, or whatever effect that was. If you're in Living Weapon, please leave in the comments what the hell that noise was, because I loved it. But to go back to that Sid Wilson comparison, I think I'll actually prefer Living Weapon over Sid. I'm sorry, Sid. As it felt a bit more refined, as they have like 1/8 of the members Slipknot has. Although, if they never replaced the members they fired. But again, it was those attention to detail nuances that really elevated this album for me. Again, more tension and release this week. I love it. This whole world is tense. When do we get a release? Living Weapon has more of a hardcore feel, but it has those death and thrash and some other influences that'll bring in those other listeners from more than just a hardcore or metalcore type listener. Some moments I get that remembering never metalcore. Sometimes I get that Kubla Khan, Texas feel, but again, running through Death in the Family so damn much, it still feels fresh as it's going on. Again, so much in the mix. It's a scavenger of pain, addressing topics like mortality, of course, meaninglessness, and the aftermath of existence, which after some reflections over the last week or so, like I mentioned earlier, I'm glad that I'm not the only person struggling with these type of topics. And that's what made this album even more appealing than it already was. I love the shit out of Death in the Family. And each time I went through it, it got even better. Now I'm giving this an 83 only. And why an 83? Because it's only 23 minutes. But if you're like me, a little smarter than the average bear, maybe a little crazier, I don't know, you can stretch that to be like an hour and a half if you just put it on loop. And while the digital release drops August 14th, which I might be a little late on this podcast for August 14th, I'm sorry, physicals aren't coming to September, so guess what? I'm early. And this gives you plenty of time to get a bunch of listens in to make sure you love it, so head over and order this banger rather than just taking a chance and pre-ordering it unheard. But again, I'm sure once you listen to this, you're probably going to want to order the record. Just take my money. Just take my money. And now, the album of last week. Last week was a little bit later on promos, like I mentioned, and again, we skipped the album of last week. This week's album of last week grabbed the hell out of me. And the more I played it, the deeper I fell for it. While Blackened Tones usually send chills just running down my spine, the third offering from the one-woman black metal project known as Hulder, titled Verbolgen, was utterly exquisite. And listening to the help of her husband, Nikron, as a full-time collaborator rather than just a contributor, Mars Bewasserts, I'm sorry if I butchered that. I'm sorry, I know I did. But Mars captures majestic feels, invoking the frosty tip of Mount Rainier. Hulder goes way back to the old school, like pre-Christianity old school. With pagan themes, nature-esque feels, this melancholy album incorporates blast beats, tremolo picking, and enough aggression that the heaviest of listeners engages as this album goes on. And while this is heavy and black and brutal, there's also some folk metal elements that help balance this out and gives it that traditional, old world, and maybe even pagan feels. This album is extremely textured. It's full of atmospheric layers, and it's damn sure good enough that you could probably just leave on your turntable for about 6 months, and I guarantee you that thing ain't getting dusty. If you're fans of blackened tones, or maybe even some of those heavier metals that incorporate those folk stylings and somewhat of a lighter artsy feel to help balance that heaviness, this album's great. And like I said, the textures just make it that much better. This was a well-written, better executed album. I was looking forward to listening to it, but after I listened to it, I didn't realize it was gonna be this damn good. But I sure am glad it was. What'd you think of this album? Did you hear Hulder's Verbolgen? Did I even pronounce that right? What did you think of it? I thought it was epic, but what'd you think of it? What else do you like last week that I missed? And if you wish to be considered for the Fired Up for Friday podcast or any other aspect of the Metal Institute of Thrashology, reach out to me. Email address is metalinstituteofthrashology@gmail.com, all one long word, no hyphens or spaces. See you in the pit.